Hi everybody, and welcome to my first Bring a Trailer auction. I want to introduce you to my beautiful Type 65 Factory 5. It's a Gen 3 Factory 5 car. It was built in 2019, a professional build, collaboration between a couple of different shops here in the local area. One called Slate Performance Automotive, and the other is Coffey's Custom Cobras. The paint was done by a shop in Trafalgar, Indiana called Sweet Dreams, and the color on this car is just a stunning color. It's a PPG tri-coat called Sunkissed, and I've never really seen anything like it. It gets compliments everywhere you go. The car is a 2019 build, but it's titled as a 1965 Factory 5 1965 replica in the state of Indiana. So if you have emissions in your state or something like that, hopefully being titled as a 1965 will help. Here in Indiana, we don't have that, so this car's never had to go through any sort of emissions or anything, but it's kind of cool having 1965. In Indiana, we can run a 1965 plate on the car, which is kind of cool. I want to introduce you to some of the controls in the cockpit. I've got pictures and some other video of this stuff, but I thought maybe walking through it would be beneficial as well. I'm just going to get the steering wheel out of the way. Energy quick release steering wheel. There's a nice hook for it here in the center. It can hang there. I'm going to move it down here to the seat just so you can hopefully see some of the other things that I'm pointing out. There's also a second hook which you can't see, but it's to the driver's right and just a little bit behind, and it is either for the steering wheel or it would be a nice helmet hook for you as well. So looking at the dash, over to the far left, we've got the headlights, so that's controlled by this little billet knob here. Three primary gauges directly in front of the driver are oil pressure, the temperature, and then fuel. And then over to the right, I have a series of controls that include my horn, toggle switch for the turn signals, and as you're operating the steering wheel, it becomes really second nature to toggle that switch on and off. Quite convenient, and it's completely out of the way if you are, spirited driving and not using the turn signals in that situation. The next one's the hazard lights, emergency flashers, the high and low beam settings for the headlights. There's a set of LED interior lights controlled by this next toggle. Backup camera, which the car's not running, so the backup camera won't come on, but I'll turn that on once I start the car. And then we've got our fuel pump switch here, so fuel pump needs to be on, of course, to drive the car. Ignition is controlled by this toggle. I chose to eliminate the key when I bought this car. I wanted to make a couple of other changes to it, and with that, I just took the key out. I didn't think that it was necessary between the ignition toggle, the fuel pump having to be on, the push button start, the removable steering wheel, the battery cutoff switch that's in the car. Plus it's a manual transmission. The car's not going anywhere, at least as far as I was concerned. So I just chose to take the key and eliminate it. But we'll start the car up here in just a moment. Above that, you've got vintage heating and air conditioning. You don't really need the heat all that often. It gets pretty warm sitting next to that Screaming Coyote engine and the MT82 transmission. But if it is a little extra chilly morning or something, you can fire the heat up if you choose. And then the air conditioning blows nice and cold, although, just being completely candid, it's not going to cool you like it would, in a modern car with your windows up and complete insulation. It blows enough to keep you from being completely hot, but it's still pretty warm in a car like this. I like to call this car my race car dressed up for prom, and that's because from a performance perspective and, really kind of everything that's going on around you, it is pure race car. It is hot like a race car. It, drives like a race car, feels like a race car, smells like a race car. So it's really race car, but it does race car in a very beautiful way, with the nice interior. I think one of the nicest interiors on any Factory 5 that's ever been built, and then the gorgeous paint, which I would stack against any of these cars any day. To the right of those things, we have Alpine head unit. The head unit also has the backup camera in it, as I mentioned before. Quite honestly, nice little stereo setup in the car. When the car's running and those side pipes are, you know, making all that noise, you can't hear the stereo, so I seldom use it. If you're just sitting somewhere, you can hear it, but I primarily use it for the backup cam, and I use the backup camera even to do some lane changes. It kind of gives you a nice view of kind of what's going on behind you. Below that, we've got an Android tablet, and the Android tablet is where we're tracking speed and odometer settings and a few other things like that. I use an app called Dash Command for this, and it's the primary controls for the car. I do have a couple of other apps that are installed, including one that uses an OBD2 connector. I'll include that OBD2 transmitter in the sale of the car. You may choose to use it. It'll need some setup if you want to do it. You can set up the gear selections and a variety of other things. I haven't gone to that effort because Dash Command does what I need it to do, and so I've continued to just use that. Right over here, you probably won't be able to see, but there's a little access port in the dash that gives you the ability to turn this tablet on and off. You don't really need to do that that often, but this tablet is constant on, so if you leave the car sitting for extended period of time, it will drain the battery. So you have two options. Option one would be turn the tablet off using the little access port, or generally I just flip the battery switch on the car and just turn all the power off, and then you don't have to worry about any sort of you know, parasitic drains on the battery or anything like that. A couple other things that I'll just mention before we go to a drive. 6-speed transmission, MT82 in the car. When I purchased the car has door poppers. There's a switch underside of each dash to pop the doors. There's also a remote that will be included in the sale that will pop the doors as well. Honestly, I do not use them. When I bought the car, one of the very first things I had done was I had billet handles installed to allow exit from the car and to easily get in the car. I really wanted to make sure that if there was ever an accident and there was the loss of power to the battery, that the occupants could get out of the car. And with the door poppers, I was a bit concerned about that, so I had handles installed. They look nice, they function. When I'm getting in the car from outside, I just reach through and open those handles. The other big change that I made to the car when I purchased it was I went from the stock ECU that was running the car to the Ford Racing Control Pack. I could not get the performance out of the car that I wanted. They did a pretty good job of trimming the original harness, but I just did not get what I wanted out of that. So we went ahead and switched it to the Ford Racing Control Pack, had the car completely tuned. It's making 409 to the wheels currently. I think roughly 379 foot-pounds of torque. I'll share in the auction the printout for the actual dyno session that it was on, and I had the car scaled and balanced also, and it scaled at 2,679 pounds, I believe, and so it's making 410 with under 2,700 pounds. This thing's a little rocket ship for sure, and an absolute blast to drive. So with that, I am going to go ahead and fire it up, and we'll go on a quick drive here, and you can hopefully see a little bit of the performance. The streets are a little bit wet today, and we're on a summer tire in January in Indiana, so we're going to be a little bit careful, but I think you'll get the idea. So hopefully you enjoy, and if I think of some other things to share as I'm going, I'll certainly do so.